Hey everybody, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I am Brad, here with Doug.
Hey.
Doug played through Zero Ranger, which is a shmup from like 6 years ago randomly, and I'm guessing the reason it happened now is because you have a Steam Deck.
Well, there's a few reasons. Actually, it's really funny. The reason I did it is because I was going through a thread where people were writing down their favorite games of like top 10 favorite games. And someone had number 1 of Zero Ranger. It's just like, I've never even heard of Zero Ranger. Like, what is this? I watched the trailer. It's like, oh, it's like an indie shmup. It's like, okay, that's kind of neat. I haven't really played an indie shmup before. And I did have a Steam Deck and it was like a cheap game. Anyway, it's the best shmup I've ever played. It's like legitimately like one of the best. Like when I finished, I was like, oh, I can totally see why someone's like, yeah, that's my favorite game ever. It's like, it's so good.
And I think that's literally what you told me is like, Zero Ranger is the best shmup ever. And I went, A, what is Zero Ranger? B, did this just come out? What is this? I don't know. Oh, it's a shmup from 6 years ago that's PC only. Okay.
Yeah. I like literally I had no idea what this game was. I just saw somebody's list of like number. I was like, how could somebody write? I know a lot of games. Like, how could I just never hear about somebody's favorite game? Yeah.
That is an interesting to think about. It's like at this point in time, there's so many games. It's like, oh yeah, there's probably there are probably dozens of weird indie games I'm just unaware of that are probably somebody's favorite game, and I've just never heard of these things. Anyway, what makes this the best shmup ever?
So, Zero Ranger is such a cool idea and executed game. So, Zero Ranger is basically like a love letter to shmups. We've reviewed a few shmups recently. We've talked about games that are kind of like cave shooter, where you play as like the magical girl and you have bullets flying everywhere. Yep. You have kind of the more like space shooter ones where I don't like them as much, but like stuff like Raiden and stuff where they're more, I don't know.
More serious in tone, where it's just the military is getting the aliens.
Yeah, exactly. Or like 1942 and stuff. And then they also have like the R-type games, which are sort of like sides. And this one's just like, what if we took all the best ideas from those and removed all the annoying stuff? And then they just made this like absolutely killer game.
Wait, so is it a left to right or an up to down?
It's up to down. It's an up to down game. With a really narrow thing. Down to up, yeah. It actually has a really narrow play field. Like it was like almost like distractingly narrow. I was like, I'm surprised how like it's one of the most narrow games I've ever played. You're gonna see a lot of black space on your screen, but it's one of those games that does so much with like so little. So the game uses just a blue and orange color scheme that's like kind of like an 8-bit color scheme, but like the second you start it just feels incredible. Like just the game feel of it is just like it's kind of funny because you think in your head it's like shmups, oh yeah, they all run at 60 frames per second. It's like, well, not really. Actually, a lot of cave shooters kind of run at like low FPS and when stuff really starts blowing off, this thing runs like pristine like 60 FPS, and it's so smooth compared to any other shmup I've ever played. But the thing that's like really cool is that there's like kind of annoying things that with shmups. Like, so one of the more annoying things is if you're playing cave shooters or just like any of them, a lot of them will have like, okay, you get this red power up and now your red guns are better and you have to get 2 or 3 or 4 until you max out your thing. And they're like, no, let's just do away with that. You just have one gun. It's maxed out all the time. So if you die, you don't have to like rebuild your guns because that's because that's not fun. It's like, let's just have the best gun like immediately. The other thing they took out, the one thing we talked about with, I think it was Raiden. Am I saying Raiden? Is that the right games that we were playing recently?
Well, recently like, being in the last 3 years, I think we've reviewed a couple.
Sure, but like one of the things that like are annoying about those, like they'll have enemies that kind of come behind you like really quick and shoot you from your butt. And it's like, why? This is just not fun game design. Like none of that stuff. So it just takes all these like cool ideas from different ones. And like the bosses are, I wouldn't even say they're parodies. They're like corrupted spaceships from other shooter games. Okay. So like the first boss you fight is the ship from R-Type. It's got like a slightly different name, but it uses the R-Type mechanics. Yeah, but it uses the R-Type mechanics against you. And it's I don't know. It just feels like a love letter to the genre. There's some like other really cool stuff with it. Feels like. So like when you play the game, it kind of feels like a normal shmup, but sometimes like there's this sort of like weirdness to it. There's like it actually reminds me of Kojima games, and I think the thing that people talk about with Kojima games, like whenever they show, like a lot of people associate Kojima with like online ARGs and stuff, but the thing that like Kojima games are really associated with is like, especially Metal Gear Solid games, is you having foresight, having replayed the game, and then like finding opportunities. Like, wait a second, if that bad guy's there, can I like take him out now? And this game, because shmups are really short, you can replay them, plays on that. Like a lot of it. There's a moment near the end of the game where you realize that you can do something. And then when you replay the game, it's like, wait, can I actually do that a lot earlier than like the point they show me? And you absolutely can.
Oh, that's cool.
And it changes the story. It changes sequences that happen in the game. There's a lot of like really cool sort of like hidden secret stuff of like killing ships in a certain order, or there'll be just like a really hard section where you're like, boy, it's really hard to hit all of these guys. Well, I wonder if I actually can do it. What if I have to, if I can, and then like you get like a little reward. Maybe it's like, because it covers like a bunch of different genres, like most of it, it's kind of like, I'd say like the more serious, say like military plane one, but like some of the bonus enemies look like ones that come from there's an SNES one I think recently called like Pone or something. Like there's like really silly kind of kitty looking ones. Like some of the enemies are like from that one, some of the ones are from R type, some of the ones are so it's like picking from all these different like cave shooter type enemies. So it's just really, really cool, and I think the art style like really pulls everything together because it just uses that orange and black like art style. It can actually mix and match these things like pretty nicely without them seeing like totally out of the ordinary. But also like that sort of like replayability thing. The story is like kind of is like really interesting and very strange.
Well, that's a big deal.
The fact that it actually has a story that's like,
I feel like most, I would guess half at least of our shmup reviews don't even mention the story.
It's a story. Yeah, but it's like, it's really cool because the concept is that there's this big alien ship called I think it's called Blue Orange, and like the color scheme uses blue and orange, that is corrupting hero ships or whatever. So that's why you're fighting a bunch of like R types and stuff. So it's this sort of like universe ending thing, and all of the other ships from the other games have failed in fighting this enemy thing. So you're fighting their corrupted versions, and then in this universe it's actually really cool because when you do your select screen, you're told at the beginning that one of the ships has been corrupted. So you can choose from 3 ships, but the first ship is clearly type A, but you can't select that one because in the story, that was the one that was corrupted. So the only 2 ships when you can start the game are ships B and C. So just like a lot of kind of like interesting sort of like little story stuff you're not expecting. Like when it's like trying not to do spoilers. It's like, there's a certain enemy that if you don't attack it, something happens. Because and then you get a little bit more like story stuff that way. And because it was funny because I kept dying on that guy. I was like, I cannot beat this game. I keep dying on this one. I was like, well, actually, nothing's happening when the battle starts. What if I just like don't do anything? So it's like kind of like interesting, kind of like not stuff you'd normally do in a shmup. Maybe stuff you do in a Kojima game or like a Nier Automata sort of thing. So it has that through the lens of a shmup. That's just done really, really well.
Does it feel like you would lose something if you didn't have some of the history with the shmup? Like if this was your first shmup, would you just be like, the hell is this?
Oh no, it would just be a really well controlling game that you've never played before. It's just just mechanically as a game, it's like it feels like incredible to play. Like I was saying, it's like one of the best feeling games, just like period. The thing that's kind of funny because it has an 8-bit art style, but also runs at 60 frames per second. They have really well animated stuff in it that you wouldn't expect for like an 8-bit game. So it just has this like really clean gameplay that's really fun, that, you know, if you have some foresight, you can do some cool stuff. And then like the story is there, and like the bosses are really, really cool. The game does a thing where this is like kind of like light spoilers. But when you play these sort of games, they usually restart. Like once you beat the final boss, it just kind of restarts. So this does that, but then it kind of wraps that into the story, and then your second run through is a little bit different in kind of unique ways, and you can kind of mess with it and all that stuff. So it's like just really cool. It's just doing a lot of cool stuff that it's like you'd think these kind of games where they're trying something new and different, like there's always kind of like a little like wonkiness with that, but it's like, oh no, it's just like on top of that, it's an amazing shmup already. Plus it's doing all this stuff. I will say though, this is like I'm not getting into spoilers. It does something so brazen at the very end of the game that like so stupid and brazen, and it made me so angry, but I was just like, God damn it, I respect you for it, sort of thing. And it's like the super ultimate final thing. And if people are listening to this review, like, I know exactly what he's talking about. But it does something so brazen. I like, even having played games like Nier and Kojima games and stuff that like they kind of mess with you in certain ways. This game does something I can't believe how pissed off I was. But again, I was like, it was like that. God damn it, I respect you for it. Sort of thing. And the thing that's kind of fun. Yeah. I don't want to spoil it, but I would just like to, for those who have played it,
to make sure you leave that really here. Good. Just know that.
Yes. Yeah, but it's just so cool, and especially it feels like one of those games. Like the more you learn about it, the more you can do in it.
That's kind of fun. Those are always fun.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well,
it's an awesome game.
We are Workforce Gaming. Leave a comment below. Subscribe to our channel. There's a link to support us on Coffee as well. We'll see you later.
Bye.